A global pandemic.
A climate change emergency.
A social awakening.
2020 has been a year
like no other.
The UK has left the European Union.
We filmed as trees exploded into flame.
This was a functioning hospital before the airstrike started happening.
You must stay at home.
How is it?
Hell. Biblical.
Your knee off our neck.
Harry and Meghan step back as senior royals.
Next President of the United States, Joe Biden.
I believe that to be true, but things will get better.
Each week, Sky News speaks to hundreds of people from all walks of life.
From prime ministers
to celebrities.
And ordinary people with extraordinary tales to tell.
Here are some of their stories.
You should not go in and trash an area of the globe about which we know hardly anything.
I've been to hell and back. It's not been nice. It's a hard road.
He's tried to hijack Christianity and the Bible.
But as soon as I had to my father, they was saying to me, not the first thing he thought.
I thought about my kids and I said, no, I cannot die today. For my kids, I cannot die. I've got to see them.
It isn't the same, is it? You really want to give people a hug.
Been so many misconceptions about me, so I wanted to show people who I really was.
You need to look deep into your heart and your soul and figure out, everyone that's watching, what you're going to do to contribute.
This is the majestic Nile, the world's longest river, crucial to the survival of millions of people. But now the river's existence is threatened like never before. Nile is a man with a mission to do everything in his power to try to save the river.
Nile is like life for the people of this country. And it has been for a very long time. And we, this generation, we should also make sure we preserve the Nile for the coming generation as it was maintained for us.
He is in no doubt what constitutes one of the greatest threats facing the region.
During the rainy season, all this place will all be covered by the water bottle and the plastic bags.
How big would you say the problem is?
It's enormous. These things are piling up. And these are the most areas that are so beneficial to the people of South Sudan. All the fish, the fisheries are based in those areas. That's where we get a lot of fish. And areas that are being used for our cattle. These are the areas that are mostly affected. You see the plastic bag effect on the environment, and I feel that the Nile is shocking. The riches of the Nile is gone. When I say the Nile is shocking, the Nile is dying. After all, if we don't see it dying today, the Nile is going to die soon after us, if nothing is done now.
Nile's unpopularity makes his job a dangerous one. Many of the storekeepers here are deeply unhappy with his campaign, and he has to be accompanied by his bodyguards at all times. Nile runs into one of the young couriers who supply the stall holders.
What do you have there? Udani. Okay. You are under arrest. You're under arrest. You are the one I'm looking for. Thank you. I'm determined to make sure this plastic is gone out of this country.
Wards of patients, many not elderly, fighting to breathe. And as our team there discovered, the impact of the suffering reaches far outside the hospital walls.
They're fighting a war here and they are losing. It is apocalyptic, and of course here they're calling it the apocalypse. The man tasked with dealing with this crisis while protecting his family and leading his community is the mayor, Giorgio Gori. He imposed the lockdown. He's doing this to save his town, but he's unwittingly designing policies that all of Europe are about to follow.
How are you?
He doesn't know it, but he's changing history. Is your message to the outside world, if you like, that you have to lock down?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. I have two daughters. They are studying in England. One in Taunton in college, and the other in Canterbury. She's doing a master. And when I saw what the English government was thinking about this problem, I decided to bring them back, because I think that even if we are at the center of the come si dice epidemia?
Epidemic.
The epidemic, probably they are probably more secure, sure, here than in England, because I don't understand why the government didn't decide in time to protect the citizens.
He's scared. The world isn't listening. Nobody takes any risks. They wash and sanitize constantly. Gloves, masks and protective clothes are regularly changed. In truth, these men and women are exhausted. The system is at breaking point, and they are as well. But they keep going. They aren't the front line in this war. They are the only line.
It's a very dangerous, is a disaster, is a tsunami. And we are here 12 hours a day. Only we are go to home for a few hours and come back here for the work, because we are here for the patients.
University Hospital Coventry now at 98% capacity and facing a perfect winter storm.
Tom has been on this unit for 3 weeks. He spent his 51st birthday here, alone.
I was absolutely terrified. You know, I'm in here, away from my family.
Tom's wife is a nurse. She realised his cough was more than a normal cold. Her action might have saved Tom's life.
I've been to hell and back. It's not been nice. It's a hard road, and it's a slow recovery. It's so evil, this thing. It doesn't care who you are. It takes you down, and it really, you struggle to beat it. And like I say, I've witnessed people go, you know, and not make it. You know, and that's a real shocker.
You've seen people die on this ward?
I've seen 2 people die in this ward while I've been on it. So, yeah, that's just harsh, you know. It's really harsh, because it really gives you a reality shock of just how serious this is.
The Prince of Wales has often been criticised as being out of touch, but in a rare show of affection for his family, he's described how, like many others during lockdown, he's craving human contact. Prince Charles described how he's missing his father, who'll be 99 next week, and his grandchildren, and wants to give them a hug.
Early on, the Prince of Wales, like the rest of us, seemed to be struggling with cutting contact because of COVID. But speaking from Scotland, where he spent lockdown, he admitted that being away from his family has been the hardest part of this pandemic.
People are just desperate to see their families, really, aren't they? It's a challenging time.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen my father for a long time. He's going to be 99 next week. And so, yes, all my grandchildren and everything. So I've been doing, well, the FaceTime is all very well.
How has that been for you, being disconnected from your family, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I mean, it's terribly sad, let alone one's friends. But, I mean, fortunately, you know, at least you can speak to them on telephones and occasionally do this sort of thing. But it isn't the same, is it? You really want to give people a hug every now and then.
Yes, I suspect you're not the only one who would love to be able to embrace their relatives, and hopefully that time is coming very soon.
Well, I do hope so, because, well, I don't worry, I totally understand so many people's frustration, difficulties, grief and anguish. I know that so many people have had the agony of losing their loved ones and the bewilderment and anxiety that surrounds everything. And so it is the most awful aspect of a pandemic like this, and yet we've seen at the same time people being quite remarkable, and wonderful people in the National Health Service and all the other key workers who've kept everything going. And that is the remarkable thing about this. It always produces the best in everybody in so many ways.
This globally has affected everybody, and it's affected everybody in very personal ways. For example, you had the virus yourself. How much did that motivate you to look at what can be done next and where we go forward?
Yes, it makes me even more determined to push and shove and shout and prod, if you see what I mean, and whatever I can do behind the scenes sometimes. But yes, I mean, I suppose it did partly. I mean, I was lucky in my case, and got away with it quite lightly. But in order to prevent this happening to so many more people, this is why I'm so determined to find a way how out of this, in order to bring the world and all of us back to the centre, back to understanding what we have to do in relationship to the natural world.
Sir David Attenborough says governments must enforce a ban on industrial mining of the deep sea because he fears big business could trash the oceans. Sir David, who is speaking exclusively to Sky News, backed a new report by Fauna and Flora International that says the thirst for heavy metals like cobalt could lead to widespread and destructive mining.
The world has become very anxious to get hold of rare metals, which till now have been found in places in Africa particularly, which we use in many of the modern electronic apparatus, particularly batteries. And so there has been a big search put on. And human beings, being the sort of people they are, they look everywhere. And someone says, what about the deep sea? Isn't there stuff there? And there's certain indications that there could be. What we are asking is that we should not go in and trash an area of the globe about which we know hardly anything until we've done the proper research.
On this issue at the moment of coronavirus, now I know you've talked in the past, talked actually quite recently about overpopulation, the amount of people on the planet and the effect that is in particular having on other species. Could this be another dimension of that, of people living cheek by jowl and then the ability of viruses to pass through quite easily?
The Black Death, when was that? 14th century, something like that?
Yeah, not so many people around
The
then.
Black Death killed thousands of people, and the size of the world population, or indeed the population of this country or Europe, was tiny compared with what it is now. So epidemics can go around the world and have gone around the world in the past. I would like to say, whoa, whoa, it's all our fault, because that's a kind of fashionable thing to say, that we're overpopulated now. But it just doesn't, that argument doesn't hold water.
Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love?
It was a global hit nearly 2 decades ago, and now Where Is the Love by the Black Eyed Peas has been reimagined in the run-up to the US presidential election.
People light, and they will find the way. Give people light. Those are words for our time.
The 7-time Grammy Award-winning musician, entrepreneur and activist will.i.am spoke to Sky News about the adaptation.
I started thinking about all the things that are at stake and how backwards we have, traveled. All the progress that was made, all the freedom fighters that fought for the civil liberties that we have. Although we're not totally there yet, but it doesn't make any sense to go backwards. It doesn't make sense that we have a leader that stirs up hate, that amplifies, division and tries his hardest to confuse us all with distractions. It doesn't make sense that we have a leader that doesn't listen to science. It doesn't make sense that we have a leader that handled COVID the way we've handled, to where people have lost so many families' lives and so many jobs, so many people facing eviction because they can't pay their bills. And with all that, I just asked, like, why are we here in this place? And when I heard Joe Biden's speech at the DNC, I realized that that sentiment that he had in that speech marries "Where's the love?"
So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be.
With so many distractions, people forget so soon. And we've been so immune and numb to just the inhumane things that, you know, have gone on, that we wanted just to remind people. You got to think about what you're going to do to contribute. I know what I'm going to do to contribute. I'm going to choose 10 states in America to start robotics programs in communities that reflect the community that I come from in East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights. And I want to get kids prepared for this technological tomorrow. So I'm starting 10 robotics programs in underserved communities to prepare the youth. And that's the least that I can do. And I'm going to do that, right? So you need to look deep into your heart and your soul and figure out, everyone that's watching, what you're going to do to contribute when Biden is elected.
Where is the love, the love?
Dominic Clayton, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor.
If we're not going to listen, we're going to scream louder and louder, and we're not going to stop until something is done.
No more hate crimes, please.
Enough is enough.
We want the black community to be one. This is what we're fighting for. We've got the same features like everybody else. It's just our skin colour is different.
We have an exclusive interview with George Floyd's son, Quincy, who says he can't stop watching the video of his father's final minutes, those 8 minutes and 46 seconds under the knee of a white police officer in Minneapolis in May this year. In a special report, as part of our coverage of Black History Month, we brought Quincy together with Neville Lawrence, whose son Stephen was murdered in a racist attack in London in April 1993. Sky's Noel Phillips has this exclusive interview.
I can't stop watching the video. I watch the video almost over and over. Not every day, but every now and then I just think about it.
It's the sort of grief Neville Lawrence knows all too well. We've brought the two men together for the first time.
When I saw the incident with your dad being kneeling on the floor with that man, kneeling on his neck, and the other officers around standing and watching, tears came out my eyes.
Like George Floyd, Stephen Lawrence's racist killing 27 years ago has left an indelible mark in British society.
How did you get through the tragedy of what happened to your son?
We had to go into counseling. The whole family had to go into counseling and talk about it. Even now, really right now, you know, if I went to a funeral to see somebody being buried, I can't go near. When they're putting the coffin down, I can't go near it because I'm looking and thinking that I'm reburying Stephen again.
Amazing grace.
I remember watching your dad's funeral on TV and seeing just how emotional and just how raw it was for your family. Can you describe what it was like for you?
It's like you see him breathing. My knees just kind of buckle. I kiss him in the forehead and let him know that everything's going to be all right. Your son's going to be here with you. Your family's here with you. You're not going to go out in vain. And when we went to go bury him,
What is it like for you when you hear those words, "I can't breathe"?
the knee on his neck saying he couldn't breathe and he called out for mama, man, it's devastating. And I have chills just thinking about what he was saying.
It's not going to be very easy. And for all the years that I've been struggling, it hasn't been easy, but you have to have a aim in view. And the aim in view of my family was to try and get justice. It took us a long time, but eventually we got some justice. And you can't give up. You know, you got to keep fighting.
In 2012, 2 men were finally jailed for life for the racist murder of Neville's son.
I have a hard time trusting any cops right about now. I'm not saying all cops are bad cops, and all cops are not good cops. But sitting there to my father, they would say to me, they're not to trust any cop.
Her name alone is enough to trigger an emotional reaction. Hillary Clinton knows she's a divisive figure, even if she's not quite sure why.
Obviously, I tried to warn about him when I was running against him, and yet once it was over, I hoped, along with many Americans, that he would rise to the job, that he would not be as bad as I feared in the way that he had behaved in the campaign. Sadly, he's been even worse. And the COVID-19 crisis really sums up the deep failures of his presidency. During the 2016 campaign, from the very first speech that I gave until the final votes were counted, I was stressing the importance of dealing with racial injustice, certainly in our policing system, but in all of our institutions. Sadly, given what happened in that election and the kind of leadership we've had since then, it has taken a series of dreadful, terrible killings to awaken the attention of the majority in our country about the need for real change. The protesters that Trump tried to characterize as thugs were the ones he literally ordered our military to clear from the square in front of the White House. They were totally peaceful protesters. And what he was trying to do, as he often does, is to mischaracterize them and their behavior and their goals and lump them in with the tiny, tiny minority of people who took advantage of a tragic moment to loot and to steal and to vandalize, a tiny, tiny percentage. And he wanted to cast that over the millions of very thoughtful, nonviolent, peaceful protesters. For a photo opportunity holding a book he's never read. And he can't tell you a single thing that's in it. That has been a pattern. He's tried to hijack Christianity and the Bible in ways that are, deeply hypocritical. And that was just another occasion. And the outcry by religious leaders, I think, demonstrated clearly that nobody was being fooled.
Formula One's Romain Grosjean has said he thought he would die after the horrific crash which split his car in two.
This is the moment the world of Formula One held its breath. It was 20 seconds before Romain Grosjean emerged from this fireball. Just how did he walk away alive and relatively unscathed?
It's 28 seconds, but for me it looks more like 1 minute 30, and you will see through the explanation. So it stops, I open my eyes, I undo the seatbelt, steering wheel gone, and I want to jump out, and I hit something on top of my helmet. I feel I hit something, so I sit back down and say, I must be upside down against the barrier, so I will wait that they come and help me. So I sit back down and I look on the right and I look on the left, and then I say, oh, it's all orange. That's strange. A few things. Is it sunset? No, it's not sunset. Is the light from the circuits? No. Also the tear-off starts to melt. So, oh, it's fire. Okay, no, I don't have time that they come. So this time I try to go up a bit more to the right. Doesn't work. Go back down. Try a bit more to the left. Doesn't work. So I sit back down, and then there's a bit of swearing going on. And I said, no, I can't finish like this. I can't finish like this. I thought about Niki Lauda. To me, it's funny is that the driver that I love the most to history of Formula One. And I said, no, I can't finish like Nicky, can't finish like this, cannot be my last race, it cannot be my last race. So I try again, I'm stuck, and then comes the part which is the less funny one. Funny is not the word, but the most scary one is I sit back down, all my muscle relaxes, almost not have a smile, but in peace with myself, thinking I'm dead, I will die. And then I thought, which part's gonna burn first? Is it the foot? Is it the hands? Is it gonna be painful? Very, very strange feeling. You know, I think, you know, sometimes we are close to death, we're a bit scared. This time death for me was here, and I named it Benoit. Don't ask me why. I just had to put a name on it, and I call it Benoit. And then I don't know if that moment allowed me to recover a bit, get my brain, try to find another solution. I thought about my kids, and I said, no, I cannot die today. For my kids, I cannot die. I've got to see them. And then I had the idea to twist my head like this, go up, and turn my body, and it works. But then my foot is stuck on the pedal, so I've got to go back down in the car, pull as hard as I can on my left leg. I mean, the shoe stayed where my foot was, and my foot came out. And then I do it again, and I went through, and the shoulder went through, and at the time I knew the shoulder had passed the halo part. I was going to leave. You know, I know I've got two of my hands on the fire, on the halo. I can see my gloves. They're red normally. They start going full black, and I can feel the pain and the burn. But I'm going up. Then I jump on the barrier, and then I feel Ian that pulls on my overall, and that is an extraordinary feeling.
Staff at a care home which lost a third of its residents to coronavirus have told Sky News that they feel tired, scared and helpless.
Bridget could only watch in horror as the virus spread across the country. A lifetime in care work, but nothing could prepare her for the devastation that was to come.
We knew there was a virus out there. Everyone was on tenterhooks because we thought if it got in the home it would spread like wildfire, which it did. Didn't matter what you'd done or how you tried to avoid it. I mean, we were all going by government guidelines, wearing PPE, and it was keeping people isolated. But obviously, it got in. It was just bedlam. Obviously, people weren't coming in, so you sat holding someone's hand. And you go home in the evening, and you come back the next morning, you've lost 3. Well, we became like their family. I mean, some of us spent more time. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Take your time. Okay.
Yeah. Some of us spent more time at work than we did at home. And we looked after those people as if they were our own, one of our own, and it was like losing one of your own. I held their hand. I held their hand. I'm not letting anyone I care for die by themselves. You're scarred and scared because there's another one coming. We're better prepared, but it's my job. My job is caring for people. And that's what I do.
It was the oldest joke in school careers lessons. I'd like to be an astronaut. But a couple of English pupils have made it, and one of them, Tim Peake, has published his autobiography to inspire anyone.
You know, when I was growing up, I looked up to the stars and I was kind of always in wonder about the big questions of the universe. But aviation was my passion. Flying was what I wanted to do. And becoming an astronaut was something that only became a reality much later on in my life. So it's been a really interesting journey to get to that point. And I think when I was growing up, it seemed to be, astronauts seemed to be something the Russians and the Americans were doing. And there didn't seem to be a route for us in the UK to become an astronaut. So hopefully things have changed for the future now.
At what point then in your career did it start to become a possibility, the hint of something that might happen?
Really, it happened when I was working as a test pilot, and I'd gone to Boscombe Down, the UK's test pilot school, and I was working much more closely with the space industry and much more closely with commercial aviation companies. So I was getting to understand space a bit more. And then I saw the European Space Agency in 2008. They had an application for astronauts, and it just went on the internet, and anybody could apply. You had to go and get a very basic aircrew medical, and then you could apply to become an astronaut. So that was really when, my journey to becoming an astronaut started.
As exciting as it sounds, you can really begin to appreciate what nerves of steel you have to go into space. It's incredibly dangerous. It's dangerous to be there. It's dangerous to get there. I mean, did you ever think you had that sort of bottle?
We don't think of ourselves working in a dangerous environment. But of course, in the year before I flew to space, I watched 3 spacecraft blow up, a Cygnus, a SpaceX, and a Progress vehicle that, re-entered Earth's atmosphere and destroyed itself. So, there were 3 big reminders before I launched that things can go wrong. But I'm passionate about what we do. We're pushing the boundaries, we're pushing the limits. And I think that we do need, industries and people who are constantly doing that, striving to make progress.
Can I ask you about that first launch? I mean, obviously you were trained to within an inch of your life, and the simulators and all the stuff that you go through must be quite remarkable. But when you are strapped in that seat, what on earth is that like?
That's just a moment of pure excitement and adrenaline and anticipation of what's coming. I mean, your nerves have gone at this point. What will be, and so you're just excited about the launch that's coming up and the sheer power and acceleration. I mean, that's 9 million horsepower on that Soyuz rocket, so it's phenomenal.
When you break sort of out of the atmosphere and you see the blackness of space for the first time, you see the sun and its true white colour rather than the yellow we're used to down here on the planet, and the clarity of the stars, all these sort of things I get excited about. Does it change your perspective as a human being?
It completely changes your perspective. And I'm really glad you said there about the white sun, because not many people pick up about that. But you're right. I mean, the sun is not yellow. In space, it's a nuclear fusion reaction out there. It's the whitest white you could possibly imagine, and it's exceptionally bright. And when you see it from space, the colors inside the spacecraft are amazing. And the Earth just looks absolutely beautiful, this wonderfully beautiful planet against the black backdrop of the universe. And it completely changes your perspective. I mean, it's impossible for any astronaut to come back, and not have a different appreciation for the planet that we live on, and, how we need to look after it and need to work together to make sure that we do look after it.
After 3 years at the helm, the biggest challenge facing the British editor of Vogue isn't who to put on the front cover, but how to reflect a pandemic and a global movement.
We went from, COVID to talking about environmental issues to the biggest moment in civil rights history. I mean, these incredible people who were sort of giving their time and their lives to make sure that there was social justice in the world, to make sure that there was education and community care. These were the people who were the new heroes.
More education, black awareness.
I live opposite Hyde Park, so I put my mask on and I went, and it was the most peaceful. People sat on the floor, John Boyega spoke, and it was so peaceful. People of all colours and all races were there.
You've been quite frank in your experiences. Yes. You've tweeted about, being at a fashion show and not being sat on the front row with your peers. I mean, that was quite brave of you.
When you walk into a show and all fashion directors are in the front row and you're in the second row, straight away that's you, profiling me. And I think people think that when you're successful, that things like that don't happen. For me, the beauty of that incident is it just makes me aware, never to think I'm too successful. To somebody, you're another black person
You did work with the Duchess of Sussex, that issue, the special issue that you did with her. She came in for a lot of criticism for that. Would you put that down to racism?
The Duchess of Sussex is she's a brave woman. She's a brave woman. I feel that it wasn't, the parts of it probably racism, but it was more institution. You know, she walked into an institution and everybody expected her to know the rules. And I think sometimes it takes a minute to sort of understand the rules. But she did get a very unfair treatment, I thought. For me, it's been so important just not being the only one, but always bringing people up with me. It's not enough just having, you know, sort of black people on your Instagram feed or in a magazine. We've accomplished that. But now, you know, behind the scenes, that's when change really happened.
Do you feel positive now that things might change?
I feel that people are aware now. You know, maybe perhaps, you know, it wasn't in people's faces, but now, you know, everybody knows racism is not just an American problem. You know, it's also a British problem. It's a global problem.
It's claimed she was the original influencer. She's certainly heiress to one of the world's most famous hotel chains. Paris Hilton is an accomplished businesswoman, model and DJ.
Paris Hilton has decided it's time she tells her story.
I feel that there's just been so many misconceptions about me, so I wanted to show people who I really was. You know, back then, they made me like I was the villain, and I'm so grateful that times have changed and now women are getting the respect that they deserve. Anyone with a phone could build a business or a brand just by showing their talents or what they love to do, their passion. And I think that's an amazing thing with technology. But I see the bad side is just, I can't imagine being a teenage girl and having to deal with the pressures of society and perfection and caring about followers and likes and, you know, people coming on your page writing mean comments. It's just, I can't even imagine how hard that is. And just, I don't think it's good for a young girl to have to go through that. I had been through such traumatic experiences in life. I feel that all I wanted to do was focus on my business and my success. And it was probably in a way which I didn't even realize till watching my film. I think I was doing it as a distraction to not think about what I had went through. And that was my goal because all I cared about was business, but now I'm putting my personal life first. So of course I'm gonna continue working, but money doesn't buy happiness, and that's not my goal anymore.
Now, she is the best-selling classical artist of the century and a voice known across the world. Now, Catherine Jenkins is preparing to spread some Christmas cheer for charity.
There'll be much mistletoeing and hearts will be glowing when love comes alive. It's the most wonderful time.
I was just about to join in. Do you fancy a duet single sometime, Catherine?
Absolutely, we could definitely do karaoke.
Yeah, karaoke is probably my limit, to be fair. It is really good to see you this morning. Talk us about this show that you're spreading to hospitals.
Well, I created a film that we made at the Royal Albert Hall, which is called Catherine Jenkins Christmas Spectacular. And the message of that was really trying to bring some Christmas cheer to families out there at the end of a tough year. So we made a feature film full of all of the music from traditional to contemporary Christmas songs and dance and special guests. And we've been working with an amazing charity called MediCinema, who show films in hospitals to patients, outpatients, and to NHS staff. And so it's lovely to think that they'll get to see the film and hopefully it will bring them a little bit of respite and comfort and Christmas cheer. Christmas music is amazing in that, you know, it brings us joy, peace, a sense of nostalgia, wonderful memories. It warms the heart.
Catherine, go on then. Do us a favour. I'm dreaming of a
I'm dreaming of a white
just like the ones I used to know.
You've got a great voice. You actually have a great voice. Okay, let's talk. We'll definitely have to do something. That was good singing.
Whatever happens in my life, I've done a duet with Catherine Jenkins.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Across the Commonwealth and around the world, we have seen heartwarming stories of people coming together to help others.
In the fire service, you're delivering the medicine for you.
And relax, perfect, good exercise, well done everybody.
We'll need some light-heartedness.
All of a sudden you feel like you're not on your own.
United in a moment of thanks.
The organiser of Clap for Our Carers. Were you surprised and, of course, delighted about how it's all snowballed?
Yes, I have certainly been surprised how every person or broadcaster, everybody made it their own with respecting of the Thursday night, all got together and showing appreciation. I would have never dreamed that it would have gone this far. That sense of togetherness, you're hearing your neighbours, as you say, you see them, you hear them from other roads, and then you know that you're not alone.
And just remind us once again, Anne-Marie, how you came up with the idea. It was taking place already, wasn't it, in other parts of the EU?
Yeah, definitely. And because I'm originally Dutch, I saw it already happening in the Netherlands. And then I heard about how much it lifted people up, like myself, being in houses, but especially how much it lifted the people up working in the hospitals. So I thought, that's such a nice and simple gesture. Let's see if we can do that here as well. And this nation have been amazing with it. Always good to the realization that we should be appreciated, the people that are out there, so that we can stay indoors, and when this is all over, to still be appreciative of them, because they are the backbone of our society. Without them, we are nowhere.
Whose fundraising efforts saw more than £32 million donated to NHS charities.
Tom says he'll continue making laps of the garden just as long as people keep sponsoring him.
Sir Tom has really captured the imagination of so many of us in this country. He's become an icon.
Is it quite overwhelming, the public support?
It is enormous. I mean, nobody could have imagined that when we started hoping to raise about £1,000, it would ever get to how it turned out. I could never ever imagine. When we started, we thought, oh, maybe £1,000.
And the fact that you're now one of the most famous people at the moment in the world.
I'm rather well known at the moment. It's amazing that all these countries are showing an interest in what we started off, and a little bit of get some money for the National Health Service. I mean, the doctors and nurses are putting themselves in mortal danger day after day, and they seem to be doing it very cheerfully and continue and doing this good job.
And if there's one kind of message you want to get across to the public, what would it be?
I should say to people, please do remember that things will get better. As the song says, the sun will shine and we'll never walk alone. I believe that to be true, that things will get better.
We're live here in Coventry, where in this very room, the UK COVID-19 vaccine rollout began in what is being called V-Day, with the vaccination of the first patient in England outside of trials.
What went through your mind? How did you feel when the hospital told you you were going to receive the first coronavirus vaccination?
I thought it was a joke, to tell you the truth, to start with. I couldn't believe it, you know, but I'm happy it's happened, and now I've done it, and hopefully it'll help other people to come along and do as I did, you know, try and do the best to get rid of this terrible thing.
And as you've been watching the pandemic and you've seen the effects...
I did.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, terrible what it's done to people, you know. It's so sudden and so it's devastating to see what they're going through, really, you know.
Well, congratulations for making history.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.